Good morning. No matter who you are, no matter where you are, can you hear me now? You are welcome here. This service is going to be it's kind of worship by committee. So I wasn't sure, Ann. So there'll be several of us who will be conducting the service, and I hope that works for you. Let us come into and prepare for worship in silence, and then we'll have our prelude.
Please join in the words to enter worship. Let us come into worship. Let us praise the God of love. We come with hope for love and reconciliation. We come to be healed and to heal. We come to give thanksgiving and receive strength for the journey. Let's sing our opening hymn, Peace I Leave with You, My Friends.
Please join me in these words of lament. Merciful and amazing God, we see violence in our schools, our grocery stores, our communities, and our world. We have gotten better and better at killing each other with deadlier weapons and with hateful words to render your children into things to be disposed of. Shine, O God, shine your love into the hearts of those who would kill. Shine your love into the hearts of those who don't have empathy. Shine your love into our hearts, into the broken hearts. We need your love. They need your love. The world needs your love now. Amen. Let us say responsively, the words of blessing. O Lord, our God, how majestic is your name in all the earth. You have set your glory above the heavens. Out of the mouths of babes and infants, you have founded a bulwark because of your foes, to silence the enemy. Many, look at your heavens, the work of your hands, the moon and the stars that you have established. What are human beings that you are mindful of them, mortals that you care for them? Yet you have made them a little lower than divine and crowned them with glory and honor. You have set them over the works of your hands. You have put all things under their care, all sheep and oxen, and also the beasts of the field, the birds of the air, and the fish of the sea, and whatever passes along the paths of the sea. O Lord our God, how majestic is your name in all the earth. Let us hear our lighting of the peace candle.
It is a custom in our congregation to light our peace candle during worship as a witness to the Prince of Peace and our communal intention to be peacemakers as a just peace church. Our poem this morning is Thank You for Each Moment by Ted Loder. Lord, thank you for each moment, for the blue sky moment, the softening earth, the refreshing wind, for the sap flowing, the bird nesting, the yellow bush, for my heart full and the joy rising in me. Soften me to receive whatever comes as a gift and to praise you in it. Lord, thank you for each moment, for the twilight moment, the pause, the good tired, for the quiet reflection, the slowing down, the mysterious sunset, for my contented heart and the wisdom growing inside me. Gentle me to feel whatever comes as a gift and to praise you in it. Lord, thank you for each moment, for the midnight moment, the loneliness, the fretful wondering, for my restless heart and the hope straining in me. Peace be with you.
Next is the scripture readings. First scripture, Proverbs 8, 1 through 4, and 22 through 31 in the Common English Bible. Doesn't wisdom cry out and understanding shout? Atop the heights, along the path, at the crossroads, she takes her stand, her path. By the gate before the city, at the entrances, she shouts. I cry out to you, people. My voice goes out to all of humanity. The Lord created me at the beginning of his way, before his deeds, long in the past. I was formed in ancient times at the beginning, before the earth was. When there were no watery depths, I was brought forth. When there were no springs flowing with water. Before the mountains were settled, before the hills, I was brought forth. Before God made the earth and the fields, or the first of the dry land. I was there when he established the heavens, when he marked out the horizon on the deep sea, when he thickened the clouds above, when he secured the fountains of the deep, when he set a limit for the area, so the water couldn't go beyond his command, when he marked out the earth's foundations. I was beside him as a master of crafts. I was having fun, smiling before him all the time, frolicking with his inhabited earth and delighting in the human race. Second scripture, John 16, 12 through 15, the New Revised Standard Version. I still have many things to say to you, but you cannot bear them now. When the Spirit of truth comes, he will guide you into all the truth, for he will not speak on his own, but will speak whatever he hears, and he will declare to you the things that are to come. He will glorify me, because he will take what is mine and declare it to you. All that the Father has is mine. For this reason I said that he will take what is mine and declare it to you.
Part 1. Some thoughts on gratitude. My heart overflows with gratitude each spring as I listen to sounds of returning birds. I stop in my tracks, grinning every time I hear the tinkling song of a winter wren, or welcome back the first ovenbird or black-throated green warbler. The ethereal songs of thrushes, exquisite. Each day that a new voice arrives is a celebration for me. Last week I shared some of that joy with a birding by ear class, and during a mid-morning break, one of the participants asked, "But is it enough to appreciate birds? How can it be okay for us to just stand by and watch humanity destroy them?" Friday, I received a thank you email from him, but he repeated his question and then asked for suggestions for ways that he could make a difference. Oh boy, how to make a difference. Such a big question. He also sent along an essay, A Call to Forgiveness at the End of the Day, by Kathleen Dean Moore, and I'd like to read one paragraph. It isn't enough to love a child and wish her well. It isn't enough to open my heart to a bird-graced morning. Can I claim to love a morning if I don't protect what creates its beauty? Can I claim to love a child if I don't use all the power of my beating heart to preserve a world that nourishes children's joy? Loving is not a kind of la-di-da. Loving is a sacred trust. To love is to affirm the absolute worth of what you love and to pledge your life to its thriving, to protect it fiercely and faithfully for all time. I believe there is a connection between the gratitude I feel and how I live my life. Gratitude fuels and propels me into action. Whether it's gratitude for birds or all of life, my life choices have the potential to make a difference for good. I'd like to share 5 actions I take because I'm filled with gratitude. I share my passions and what I'm grateful for, as well as the concerns I have, with friends, family, and folks I don't know, all ages, I teach, I lead groups, I facilitate, I show up and speak out. Second, I support organizations. Wayne and I give money to about 100 organizations. We also give in-kind support, serving on boards and committees, volunteering, donating services. I'm grateful to organizations that have the expertise, resources, and energy to affect change for good. 3, when asked or invited, I often say yes. This week, yes, I can give you some respite, visit a church member in the care center, lead a song, give a talk, help with a chore, work to strengthen a relationship, listen on a Zoom meeting and learn something new, greet a candidate running for office, attend a rally to promote new gun laws. 4, I try to live intentionally. I grow my own food. I try to keep my life in balance. I pay attention. I vote. I try to live simply and eliminate what is not useful, necessary, helpful, or for the greater good. 5, when I mess up, when I realize that what I'm doing is not actually helping, I begin again. I try a new path. What do I do with all of my gratitude? What does the Lord require of us? Seek justice, love kindness, walk humbly with God. Seek justice, love kindness, walk humbly.
I don't think I can add anything to what Anne has said, but I'm going to try anyway. Thank you. Those were very inspiring words. I'd like to riff on one of the statements we were asked to consider a few weeks ago when we started our listening groups about where this congregation is going in the future. So, here's this well-trodden quote from Friedrich Bruckner. Your vocation is where your greatest joy meets the world's greatest need. So what is my greatest joy? It would be, if I can make it happen, leaving a safe and sustainable world for my grandchildren. So that means working for climate justice, making whatever effort I can to create that great turning from business as usual to a new way of living on this fragile planet. So, doing what I can to halt global warming, doing what I can to make sure that my actions do not adversely affect the least of these, God's children's unintended consequences. So, what does that mean? Advocating, obviously, for system change, changing practices and policies that have negative effects, influencing government and industry, doing what I can to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and making sure that making my voice heard in these other arenas so that we can make a difference. Doing what I can personally and collectively to transition to clean energy. So, examples. Stop practicing practices that pollute the air, soil, and water. These are often detrimental to the health of poor and marginal people who sometimes are forced to live in the proximity of this toxic spewing. For instance, the Fond du Lac Band of Ojibwe down on the lower St. Louis River. Used to live near the St. Croix. The pollution from a potential mine overflow could increase the mercury load and other toxic metals in the St. Louis River, making it harder for people to live on the fish and wildlife they collect from the river and its surroundings. So maybe stopping the mine. Reduction of fossil fuel and petroplastic usage. We can try to use our vehicles efficiently, making, if you'd run errands, group them all together so you're not running home and back several times, especially up here when we live, some of us live miles and miles up the trail. Reducing to the extent possible our use of plastics, reducing landfill usage. Landfill is apparently a major source of methane, which is an extremely dangerous greenhouse gas. We can advocate for system change. We can also act locally, some of the things I've already mentioned. So what we do locally has an impact on changing the direction of the global needle. A few things we can do conscientiously. There are so many pieces, we can't do them all, but we can do specific things that we feel we have control over. Some of those things I mentioned already: efficient use of vehicles, efficient use of energy. We can also speak up. Anne mentioned speaking up. I'm going to mention some of the same things. Write, call, email your state and national legislators and the regulatory agencies as well. Tell them of your concerns, tell them what you would like them to do, and make it a threat if you have to. If you don't change your vote, I'm not voting for you again. Monitor your energy use and your waste stream. Compost and recycle. Use efficient light bulbs, appliances. Watch your heating and cooling. Consider solar. I know it's expensive, but the price will be coming down. We can support local environmental actions, and I'm thinking of two: Minnesota Interfaith Power and Light, our local chapter that we're trying to start here, and the Cook County Low Energy Project, CCLEP. Finally, I'd like to conclude with a couple of closing quotes. You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you permitted to desist from it. A statement attributed to a Talmudic scholar. Be aware of unintended consequences, and as a follower of Jesus, remember, whatever you do for the least of these God's children, you do for me. Thank you.
What they said. I thought it was too cold for black flies, but apparently not. So try and keep it short. I've been reading a book that by a guy by the name of Brian McLaren. You may have heard of him. He's a former pastor. He's a theologian. He's a writer. He's a speaker. He is kind of part of Father Richard Rohr's Merry Little Band at the Center for Action and Contemplation. And he wrote a book called Can I Stay a Christian? And pretty interesting book, pretty disturbing book, and one that you would not expect to come from a theologian or a former pastor. The first section is entitled No. That's his answer to the question. And he follows it up with 10 chapters. I'm not going to go through all 10. With 10 chapters as to why we ought to consider perhaps, or why we need to consider perhaps, or why we just should leave Christianity. First Christianity has been vicious to its mother. The anti-Semitism that has been practiced by Christian civilizations down through the ages is horrific, and it's shameful. The suppression of dissent, again, down through the ages. What has happened, so he points out what has happened so frequently is somebody won't like, a good example, Martin Luther didn't like the way the Catholics were doing things, so he posted his however 90-some theses, and then they formed a new brand of religion, and then they made that so that they could oppress others as well. That whoever's in charge gets to do the suppressing. That happened with the Crusades, it happened with the witch hunts, it happened with colonialism. We ought to leave Christianity, he says, because of Christianity's real master, money. And once again, we don't have to go too far before we see people who have exploited the neediness of others for their own gain. I'm thinking specifically of some of the televangelistic preachers that we see on TV who have big homes, big cars, but it's not just them. He also talks about that perhaps we ought to leave because of a toxic theology. He said Christianity, he has taken and has reduced the mystery, the Christ mystery, to a set of beliefs. And then we've codified that set of beliefs into a system. And that system becomes more important than the mystery. The system is what we worship. The system is what we need to preserve. And we define, and Christianity and various denominations have defined themselves by those beliefs. And he points out that Christianity is not a set of beliefs, it's a way of life. And that we perhaps have forgotten that. Finally, chapter 10, he says that perhaps we ought to leave Christianity because it is a sinking, shrinking ship of wrinkling. He coined the word shrinkling. And if you look about, some of you notwithstanding, if you just look this way, you see what he's talking about. That more and more and more Christianity and our denomination seem to be made up of people who are shrinkling. And in fact, over the past number of years, quite a few years, all denominations, all religions, Muslims included, have lost membership as people have just decided you don't practice what you preach. So he goes through all those 10 chapters, which kind of answer the question, no. And then you turn the page and you come to part 2. And I have to admit that as I read it, I thought not just should we leave Christianity, but sometimes I wonder whether we ought just not to forget about God. I remember Pastor Peter Moncris saying one time that when he was camping as a young man and out in the west in the mountains, and he woke up one morning and he saw the sun come up over the mountains, and he said, I never again doubted the existence of God. And I've had experiences like that, as perhaps you have. I think I have it every time I look at the lake, that I appreciate the existence of God. But I also have to admit that lately, as I look, and I try not to read the news, and I try not to look at the news, but just as, being aware of things like a despot literally overrunning a country that is so close to being genocide, that all of us, as Anne and Bruce talked about, so many of us destroying the only home we have. This is it. It's the only one we got, and we don't seem to feel very strong about maintaining it. That literally day after day after day, we read about somebody, lately young people, who extinguish the lives of others, particularly our kids. Well, I think it was after Newtown that we somehow, for whatever reason, gave our permission that you could kill our kids. There are millions of refugees, millions of displaced persons. I had the opportunity to work, when I was in Georgia, I had the opportunity to work for a daytime drop-in center for the homeless. And it was a profound experience for me. But you really have to wonder, what's wrong with us that these people have to live that way? And when I consider all of that, I have to be honest with you, I think, God, you may exist, but where are you? What's going on? And I think also that for all the things that Ann talked about and all the things that Bruce talked about, the cynic in me, the old gray-haired, wrinkled cynic in me says, yeah, that's fine. But what really difference is that going to make? You know, the fact that Bruce goes to a C-CLIP meeting, or Ann tries to live intentionally, or any of you try to do the things that you try to do, on the global, you know, the overall scheme of things, what good is it going to do? I try not to be that way too often. And usually something will happen that will bring me up short and realize that it does make a difference. I think it was Thich Nhat Hanh that said, be the change that you want to see in the world. And that can be pretty small. And for a lot of us, that is pretty small, because that's what we can do. And the other thing that I want to, I guess, address too, or talk about, is there is such a tendency now that if I don't agree with you, you're wrong. And not only that, but I'm opposed to you. And not only that, but you're a bad person. And that I should be able to criticize you. The fact that we disagree doesn't necessarily make us wrong. It just means that we disagree. And that perhaps there's a way that we can find to come to some kind of common agreement. But for whatever reason, we now are in the position of, no, that's not it. That if you're on this side of this issue, and I'm on this side, then I'm going to be on the other side of every issue from you. In some way, somehow, in our small individual ways, maybe that's the way that we can come together. I remember and a number of you will remember, not too many years, or several years ago now, the DNR wanted to do a safe harbor down in our harbor. And oh my gosh, you talk about the controversy. There were people who thought, what a great idea. We'll be able to get larger boats in here. More people will come, better for the economy, better for business. There were others that said, you're going to disturb the wildlife, the birds. You're going to permanently affect the birding here. And people were like this. And what happened was that it wasn't just on that issue. Suddenly it was other issues where, oh yeah, you're for that? Well, then I'm over here. And I even knew people that couldn't go to social gatherings with other people. We can't let that happen to ourselves. So what can we do? Well, I have a friend that his basically philosophy of life is to practice persistent courtesy. And I love that phrase. Persistent courtesy. Not just to one another, but to all God's creation. Persistent courtesy. And we do it by the kind of things that Bruce talked about, and the kind of things that Ann talked about. Another friend of mine says you can pretend to care, but you can't pretend to show up. And I'm really, really grateful to live in a community that shows up. I look right here, showing up and worshiping in a parking lot. Really? What we do, and on Pride Day, and living intentionally. It's so important. I was also, it was demonstrated for me yesterday. I attended this memorial service of David Hahn, and many of you know David. And as I sat in and it was a great service, it really, truly was. But as I sat in that service, I thought, persistent courtesy. You could apply that to David Hahn. David Hahn lived a life of faith and lived a life of helping others. maybe what we do makes a difference. Sometimes we'll never know. But if we lived a life like David Hahn and practiced persistent courtesy, who knows? Maybe it'll spread. Thanks.
Okay, this is on. This is our time for sharing joys and concerns, and I will start out with a joy that we get to come to church and hear lovely music, and I truly appreciate the people who share their talent with us in all forms of music. Um, and I'll share one other joy off the bat. Um, in the Minneapolis Star Tribune today, there's an editorial submitted by Mary Cheetah, who is a family physician in the Twin Cities. And it proposes common sense legislation for control of firearms. All the proposals are not in conflict with Second Amendment rights, and they are not infringing on hunters' rights, but they're proposals that will clearly reduce gun deaths and gun injuries. And although it's not printed in the paper, if you look on an online form, 250 female physicians from Minnesota signed this letter. And that is a joy to me. So, other people have joys to share today.
A little harder for me to come to the microphone, but at the same time, I just want to share with you what's going on in the Strayer life. I had a major fall about 3 years ago smaller cart. So anyway, thank you for listening to my update. We're here until mid-August. We look forward to what the community has and what you are able to provide us, and hopefully we're able to provide to you. Thank you.
Good to have you here, both of you.
A joy this gorgeous day. The flowering trees beginning to open. It really means that summer is right around the corner, and I'm grateful that we made it through a nasty winter.
Other joys? Speaking of trees, if you haven't gone around the corner to see the white tree, it is gorgeous. I think we should have a group picture and put it on the bulletin. Other joys to share this morning? Pete?
I'd like to thank my poor wife. Gotta talk into the fake, okay. For sticking with us for 64 years tomorrow. We started out in a hole because we were married on Friday, June 13th. She never gave up, so I'm pretty proud of her. You should be too.
We're thankful for Carol's persistence. Are there concerns or worries to share this morning?
I think I've asked for prayers for this person before, many times probably. My sister Mary, who is just a little bit younger than I am and has never really been in very good shape, but is pretty sick right now. She's suffering from an infection called, Sandy, I hope I get this right, C. diff? Yeah, which is pretty serious. And she also is suffering from kidney disease and a lot else as well. But if you could just keep her in your prayers as well. Thank you. So her name is Mary.
Others? Creator God, we have many joys and many worries in our hearts. We're worried about our survival. We know that if we don't survive, we did it to ourselves. We ask that you recreate us into the beings in your image, that we take care of each other, we take care of the earth. Today we lift up prayers for Bob's sister, Mary, for Jim Beester, who's in the hospital, and for Nancy Starr, whose mother died recently. I'm going to turn the page. For Meredith Elliott, Vicki Biggs Anderson, Paulette Sanholm, Jenny Delph's father, Larry, who continues to recover, Chris Baxter. We're delighted to have Mike Carlson here. For the family and friends of John Mianowski, Gwen Dornfeld, who is my sister-in-law, and who is marking her brother's death today, and who is also struggling with breast cancer. For Tom Yahazi and his family, the communities of Uvalde, Buffalo, and the people of the Ukraine, and also people who can't be here with us in person, Nona Smith, Sue Goodell, and Beth Denny. Please join with me in our communal prayer as Christ taught us. Our Father, Mother God, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. For our time of giving, information is in the bulletin, and we truly appreciate all the financial gifts that the church receives. I don't think I'm going to repeat all announcements for the weekly activities because they're in the bulletin. You can read them as well as I can. Is that it, Bob? Oh, and we sing. Everybody hear that? Reports to Nancy by the middle of this week for the annual meeting. Thank you. All right, let's sing.
I love to tell the story of unseen things above, of Jesus and His glory.
Thank you so much for joining us in worship. As my brother always says, go and do good work.